Hi there, Dr. Rajiv Iyer here, bringing you more secrets on how you can be successful as an international medical graduate doctor in Canada. Here, I'm going to tell you what is going on with IMGs in Canada as we are speaking and give you 10 tips on how you can successfully match into a top Canadian residency program, and let's do this together. In Canada, there are presently 13,000 doctors who are not working and trying to get into a residency program. That's a huge number. So the competition is stiff. Canada is estimated that they will be short of 44,000 doctors by 2028. This is a great news for IMGs. In Canada, overall, approximately 25%, that is 1 in 4 doctors, are IMGs. If you think of some of the provinces like Saskatchewan, the number is even higher. Every other doctor in Saskatchewan is an IMG. Isn't that amazing how many IMGs are contributing to Canadian healthcare? Here is a huge problem. IMGs can only apply to 300 to 400 spots every year through CORMS matching. That's ridiculously low. On top of this, 80% of IMGs do not match. 80%. Huge number. I compared this with Canadian medical graduates, and only less than 5% of Canadian medical graduates do not match into residency program. So this means if you're an IMG, you have to work really hard and follow these 10 solid tips that I'm going to give you right now. Tip number 1 is aim to get high scores on MCCQE1. Now, if you're thinking you already knew this, let me clarify this a little further. When you think of Canadian medical graduates, they are okay just passing the exam. So they tend to take less time as compared to IMG. But as an IMG, when you apply for a program, from a program director's standpoint, they have no way of analyzing how good a candidate you are. Well, they might say they're not going to look at scores, but scores, in my opinion, is an important piece. Aim for really high scores. A passing score on MCCQE1 is 226. Your goal should be to get at least 260, even better, 280 and more. This is because there is an assumption that if a candidate does really well on MCCQE1, the program will look at this positively. To them, it sends a message that this person is an outstanding candidate. They have a solid medical knowledge. Now, if I hire this person into my residency program, then they're going to really excel and it's going to make our life easier. Is this making sense? You have to think from a program director standpoint, not from an applicant standpoint. A small shift in the way you think is going to help you a lot. Tip number 2, make your letter of intent like a story. When the program director reads your letter of intent, the first 3 or 4 lines should be so punchy and powerful that they have an incentive to read the whole letter. If they start with the boring note, they are not going to read your letter, which means your possibility of getting matched significantly comes down. Tell them how excellent a candidate you are, what is your background, and the specialized thing that you're going to bring to that program. Is that making sense? If it is not, I do help IMGs write an excellent personal statement. So if you want my help, check my website www.imgsecrets.com and you'll find all the information there. Tip number 3, if you have anything negative, make sure you mention that in your personal statement along with how that is unique to your situation. Now let me give you a specific example. Let's say you've come from a program from your home country where you do not have any research experience at all. Now you can specifically state that in your personal statement and try to mention how the program can offer these unique things to make you successful, and because of those learnings, how you can give back to the program by being very productive in terms of research. Is this making sense? Tip number 4 is about the MSRP, the Medical Student Performance Record, also known as the Dean's Letter. Now, this is a letter which is a mandatory requirement that you have to submit along with your application. The programs recognize not many deans are willing to write a letter. In spite of this, you have to make sure you have an outstanding letter from the dean which speaks about your capacities and capabilities. In addition to dean's letter, it's always helpful if you get a letter from your specialization, even though it's from your home country. It need not be from someone higher up in your hospital, but it is always helpful if they can speak about your clinical knowledge and your clinical experiences, because this speaks a lot if someone has observed you doing clinical work. And this is more so important in surgical specialties. Surgeons, watch this out. Tip number 5 is that if you're a medical student, do really well in your medical school or medical college, because the higher scores, the more awards you have in your medical college, this speaks for itself. Now the program will know you're an outstanding candidate. At the end of the day, the programs want to hire someone who is really good at clinical knowledge, clinical skills, and they don't want any headache. They want to have a person who does their work and is really productive in whatever they're doing. It's as simple as that. Make sure you have your transcripts ready, because this is again a mandatory requirement. Plus, if you have the opportunity to do clerkships, definitely do those, because these will help you in a lot of different ways. Tip number 6, how about research experience? IMGs have this question: how about I move as a research fellow or with some research experience and then apply for matching? This is a really good idea, but you have to keep in mind about a few things. When you come in as a research experience, you have to make sure you're productive. For example, let's say you end up doing 2 years as research fellow, and the expectation is you at least show some abstract, some presentation, and some manuscripts you have done. But on the other hand, if you continue to spend 5, 6, or 7 or whatever years it is as a research fellow, that might be seen as a problem, because now you're spending your time as a research fellow but not trying to match into a residency program. Plus, you're staying far away from your clinical touch, which is really important, because ultimately when you get into residency, you are working with patients. Is that right? IMGs, so far, if you are finding any value with the video, make sure to hit the like button. Thank you for doing that. Tip number 7, submit to multiple programs. I know it costs money, it costs time, but don't get married to 1 or 2 programs and stick with them. The more programs you apply to, the higher the chances that you're going to match. And be very careful when you're doing multiple submissions, and be clear about where you're applying. Check your application. Don't mess up the application and submit with the wrong university names. This will not go well. Now, tip number 8. You may end up moving to Canada for various different reasons. Once you move to Canada, here are some things you need to do. You need to build your network. How are you going to do that? You have to go to hospitals, talk to people, look for job opportunities. If you cannot find any, which probably is what most likely is going to happen, given how many IMGs are in Canada, look for volunteer jobs. Try to reach out to people on your own. Spoon feeding will not happen in Canada. You have to stand up for yourself and be proactive and try to find spots. As you're doing this, know people who are willing to help you. Now, if you have any specific points and you want to discuss your situation or how to make your application really successful and stand out with the competition that there is going on, you can reach out to me on my website at www.imgsecrets.com, and I have given all the information there. Tip number 9. If you already have completed your subspecialty training and now trying to match into a residency in Canada, an example, let's say you're a cardiologist from your home country and now you're trying to match into an internal medicine residency program in Canada. It is important that you also have a letter from your sub-specialization, which in this case would be cardiology. It could be anything, but I'm just using the example of cardiology, because this speaks about your clinical experience and your clinical acumen, and these things would help build your application. So when the program directors or the university is reviewing your application, they look at the whole package. When they're scrutinizing an IMG application, they're pretty strict about how they review your application. No wonder 80% of IMGs are not matching. This is making sense how important this is. And finally, to tip number 10. Stop thinking like an IMG. Now think of someone who is bringing in value. IMGs, at least to my experience, that I've seen, have such an extensive experience both clinically and academically. They bring so much value. So as an IMG, when you're speaking about your application package, you have to bring in that unique perspective that you're going to bring into Canada. Something that they would not have seen, or something that's not new but unique for you, for your personality. All these will help you match successfully into one of the top residency programs. Now that you know having an exceptional MCCQ1 score is so important, I'm going to recommend this video where I've explained to you how to prepare for your MCCQ1 so you ace the exam right away on the first time. Any questions? Post in the comments below. I try to get back as soon as possible because I know you want to hear those answers. If you need my help with your IMG journey, you can reach out to me at www.imgsecrets.com. Take care, stay safe. I will talk to you soon. They do get a lot of letters. Now they have to skim through so many, they have to read through so many letters.